What's going on, everybody? Fantastic Hip Hop back with a brand new video, and today we're going to be reviewing the game's new album, Drillmatic. Now, after countless delays, the game has finally put out his first album since his 2019 retirement with Drillmatic Heart vs. Mind. Now, at 30 songs long, the album is an absolute mess, but it somehow manages to be pretty good. Now, hear me out. From top to bottom, every single thing about this LP is unhinged. It comes in at 2 hours long. The length, the asking price to get through this record is just ridiculous. I understand why a lot of people are just turned off just looking at that timestamp. Now, the game is showing off a lot of his artistic arsenal throughout this experience, but there is a lot that definitely could have been cut down. There are a lot of tracks that just feel redundant. There are a lot of tracks that just feel like they should have no place on this record, but still. If you look at this record on paper, I thought it was going to be a disaster. Now, almost the entire industry is featured on this album, which we'll get into later. But if you just look at the two extremes, you have features like Ice-T, and then you have features like NBA Youngboy. Listen, both of those guys are respected, they're popular in their own realms, but how the hell do you expect them to be on the same record and make that work cohesively? Listen, I don't freaking know, but somehow the game manages to make it work. I mean, it is so clear that the game literally finished this album less than a week before turning it in, as he literally has a bar about Beyonce's new album that just dropped. Well, usually this seems like an absolute recipe for disaster. I think this record's lack of planning and calculation adds a feeling of rawness that kind of depicts where the world is at and where the game is at as a whole. To again reference the self-titled track, game brings up so many issues and headlines that 2022 have put on us, including such things as the increase in gas prices, Brittany Griner being sentenced to 9 years in prison, and the passing of the legendary Virgil Abloh. It really seems like the game's taking a play out of his good buddy Kanye West when it comes to the procrastination of being satisfied with this album. And we can see this being true as he has not one but two features on this project. One of the songs is obviously the controversial track Easy, which Game does his thing over, and Kanye goes on his first of many Pete Davidson attacks. And for the other track, Fortunate, it's the worst thing that I have ever enjoyed. From the overabundance of features to Kanye's performance, which seems like he did it half asleep, this track shouldn't work, but the vibey trap beat and the game's fiery opening verse make this song just have enough in it to keep me listening. Kanye somehow, with such a lazy performance, makes this work, and I don't get it. And that's the way I feel about a lot of this record. I just don't get it, but somehow it kind of works. Speaking of superstars on this record, the moment most people seem to be talking about is the 10-minute diss track on Eminem, The Black Slim Shady. And in all honesty, I think this track is pretty bad. 10 minutes is really a lot of time for a diss, and I do think the game may have had a point or two, but the song in its entirety feels like more of a way to grab attention as opposed to calling out Eminem in a way he may have deserved, which he really does not deserve. Now, the game does say things like Eminem has fallen off, but for him to just keep biting at the camp who made him famous in the first place is just very confusing. The game goes as far to say he would rather listen to 6ix9ine 69 times and participate in 69s with 69 nuns than listen to Eminem. Like, come on, bro. Eminem, first off, has multiple albums better than any of the game's best album, and on top of that has done way more for hip-hop as a whole than the game. It's just very confusing, and if Eminem claps back, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Also, can we just mention that the game ranked Eminem as the 4th best rapper of all time a couple years ago on Twitter? I mean, if that doesn't solidify that this track is just blatant clout chasing, I don't really know what can. Now, going back to the core of the record, the entire first half of this album is definitely the stronger side, and while not always being the best in terms of pacing, the entire first half is pretty much just highlights. One Time is a strong intro that welcomes us back to the world of the game, and a track like Outside with YG is a great anthem where two West Coast rappers show just how bright their roots shine when they're together. Even the songs with newer artists like 5 Foreign and NBA Youngboy work very well, as they just bring out a new side in the game as a whole, and he really embraces evolving. loving. The production in these cuts and throughout a lot of the record is another one of its strong suits, as the beats are loaded with refreshing textures and impressive sampling. The soulful voodoo and the intense Paul Wall produced La La Land highlight just how good the instrumentals are on this project and also how versatile the game is as a whole. Even songs that team up Game with melodic West Coast rappers like Ty Dolla $ign and Roddy Ricch work very well, which is kind of surprising considering how much of an odd combination they can be on paper. One of the best songs on the entire record is the braggadocious No Man Falls, which sees the Game trading verses with Pusha T and 2 Chainz in such a smooth and majestic fashion. I mean, this is a perfect track in every sense of the word, and honestly one of the better songs that have dropped this year. Chrome Slugs in harmony with Lil Wayne and G Herbo was another nice moment, especially considering its sample of the classic Bone Thugs and Harmony track Thuggish Ruggish Bone. Their respective Start From Scratch 2 was another powerful moment as we see the Game have a mature look at his past and all of the choices and actions that have shaped him into the man he is today. These solo cuts are some of the best on the album as they really allow the legendary West Coast MC to show his growth and maturity as a man, but they really are thin as almost every song on this record is a collaboration of some sort. What We Gonna Do keeps this momentum rolling as the Game continues to rap more of his truth, but from here, the record begins to move down a little more of a rocky road, but does an alright enough job at staying close enough on course to not tank the entire momentum that's been building. Ruby's Rose has its good parts and its twist of verse, which just is great to hear him rap in his trademark fast-paced flow, but I don't think him, Game, and Jeremiah work especially well over an atmosphere that is kind of unsettling, and the two halves of this track are just way too disjointed. The Drake with Braids interlude is very useless, and I mean, it's just a clip of Drake dubbing the Game and BSing his way out of doing a verse for this project, and this leads to the horrid cut of Nicki, which features French Montana, DJ Khaled, and Tory Lanez. Now, aside from Tory Lanez, who does his thing on this track, these rappers just fundamentally don't work over this tropical production. Talk to Me Nice with Meek Mill, Moneybagg Yo, and Blast is a nice little fiery trap banger, and it's definitely a solid cut, but it's really nothing to write home about outside of Blast's feature, which hearing him in this more in-your-face style of music was a nice little change of pace compared to his more usual melodic side. Money Cash Close definitely hits with its hard-hitting boom-bap beat and pair of verses between Game and A$AP Rocky that match each other's energy seamlessly. The Game's flagship name-dropping also shines through here in a bar like Living in Conway, Butcher and Swizz Beats, and Beef is always the entree. I mean, the Game's name dropping here is just as good as ever, and he drops a lot of names, which you will find throughout the project. He talks about Kendrick, gives him a little salute, and there's a lot more if you go down the track list and really look into these lyrics. Now, Game does bring another former star back to the big stage with the song Killers, which you guessed it features the one, the only, Killer Cameron. Now, this track gives us the gift of hearing Cameron rap over a drill beat, which in itself works surprisingly well, and I honestly think Cameron should make a comeback drill album. I think it actually would be amazing, and that's how good this cut is at convincing me that Cameron still has this much left in the tank, and that he can evolve with such a different style compared to what we saw him doing in the past. Now, after the Black Slim Shady, the record continues to ride on the line of just okay with the Big Sean collab Stupid, which features one of the most annoying hooks I have ever heard from Big Sean. The Game does his thing here, but I don't think this track just does anything special enough to warrant being on this behemoth of a record. 38 Special is a waste of a great beat on a Blueface feature, and overall, I just feel like the Game is just trying to extend the record any way he can with this type of cut. I mean, this song is not the worst thing ever, but that does not whatsoever warrant this ridiculous length. The problem is with this record is that Game does not understand the concept of quality control. That's why we have moments that are kind of okay, but mixed in with just such a long record, they really are not that special. I think if this record was shorter and maybe he released, 2 albums, I think there could have been a lot of other things, a lot of other directions that all of these songs could have been used, but just throwing it into one long trip of 30 songs, it's just very tedious. Gearing up for a strong finish, Twisted is another powerful moment that shows the Game accepting that Father Time has caught up to him and how the landscape of his place in the rap game has definitely changed. Now, I really appreciate a moment like this, as it's just amazing to see a rapper realize they're aging and try to place a finger on where they stand in today's game. Save the Best for Last keeps the closing leg running with an amazing Rick Ross feature, which should be a surprise to nobody because Rick Ross is one of the best feature artists of all time, and the game continues to spit another verse that's a little more personally centered. Now, he's not going above and beyond with what he's saying, but he's just adding a little more to the canon, and I really do appreciate these more introspective verses from him. Now, this track leads into one of the best cuts on the record in A Father's Prayer. And between this song's soulful beat and the game's lyrics that show him talking to his daughter, this is just a very sweet moment and another cut that continues to showcase the maturity of Game. He understands his faults as a man and hopes his daughter does not get involved with somebody who resembles his features, which is just a crazy conclusion to realize that you don't want the person you've created in this world falling in love with yourself. Bringing things to a close once and for all, Universal Love with Chris Brown, Chloe, and Cassie is a nice closer that features a beautiful Janet Jackson sample. The game talks about all he wants to do and change the world and improve it for those living in it, and I do think that this is some of his most powerful commentary on the entire record. Hearing Game come this far and actually propose ideas that he thinks will help his community and the world as a whole, it's just very empowering. As I said earlier, while Game doesn't go into the level of depth on these strong ideas that would make this album really go to the next level, hearing him just think through so many different lenses in order so he can make a positive impact on the world makes for this record's themes to feel somewhat present and just puts a powerful lens on where the game is at as a man. Now, this really confuses me because tracks like these showcase where the game is at, how mature he is as a person, but then a song like The Black Slim Shady just kind of throws that all out the window, and it just really just confuses me of why this was on the track list. With that said, all in all, I think the way that 504's Bible felt like the Donda of drill music, I think Drillmatic feels like the game's version of Donda. This record is a star-studded project filled with big budget production, and despite the super long length and a lot of filler, the highs on this record make it worth listening to in the long run. While I definitely think this album is extremely challenged structurally, and its length is nowhere near as rewarding as an album like Donda or even Logic's Vinyl Days, which just dropped, any hip-hop fan will have a lot of fun with this record and find a lot of enjoyability in it. And now for my least favorite part of this review, we gotta rank the 30-song track list. So we're gonna start off with the songs that should have been cut from the album. So that is Nikki Beach, Stupid, Drake with Braids, with somehow an interlude of Drake dubbing the shit out of the game is better than 2 full songs. Ruby's Rose, The Black Slim Shady, 38 Special, Fortunate, and Talk to Me Nice. All of those songs should have been cut from the album. So that's already 7 songs gone. Now these songs, I don't hate them existing, but I really don't think they should have stayed on the album. That is Easy, How Far I Came, and even Change the Game, Chrome Slugs and Harmony, OPP. I just don't think these tracks necessarily needed to be here. Now going forward, I think all of these tracks are good. Burning Checks, What We Not Gonna Do, One Time, No Smoke at the Polo Lounge, Money Cash Clothes, Twisted, La La Land, Outside, Save the Best for Last, Killers, Heart vs. Mind, Universal Love, Voodoo, Home Invasion, Start From Scratch 2, A Father's Prayer, and No Man Falls. For all of these reasons, I'm going to be giving Drillmatic a 6.8 out of 10. Do you agree with my score? Let me know your thoughts on this album and my review as a whole in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe and leave a like. It helps out the channel a ton. Mr. Fantastic, Fantastic Hip Hop, signing out. Have a great day.